It is a social media has tremendously changed human relations and the world over, but it's also mainly responsible for fake news and how it spreads. As the world tries to regulate these uncharted paths, Germany introduced its first anti-fake news law, which compels sites to ban or block content found to be offensive in any way. Are there lessons to be drawn from this example? Let's head to Berlin in Germany, where political correspondent with our partners DW Thomas Sparrow is standing by with some more. Thomas, it's good to have you this week. How exactly does this law work in Germany?
Well, essentially, this law, which came into full work in January, obliges large social media platforms or internet platforms, because Google is also included there, to block or to delete content that is reported by users here in Germany and that is deemed to be illegal or offensive. So it's not only fake news, it is also, for example, hate speech or incitement to violence or all sorts of other content as well. If these companies do not delete the material in 24 hours, if it is evidently illegal, or in 7 days if it is more ambiguous, then they can face fines up to 50 million euros. So it is indeed a law that has been described as one of the most strictest laws of the type in Europe and in other parts of the world as well.
We understand that some of the social media sites have actually already published their results following the implementation of this law. Which platforms have published their results and what's in these results?
Well, Gifty, the thing is, another aspect of this law is that social media companies and online media companies are obliged also to present their results. For example, now, after 6 months, they have to present that publicly, but also to the German government as well, and show what type of content has been reported and what type of content they have eliminated. So, for example, YouTube said it had received 215,000 complaints from users here in Germany, and they found that 58,000 of them were justified. Twitter had 264,000, and they blocked or deleted less than 29,000 of them. And Facebook had 1,704 complaints, so way less than YouTube and Twitter, and they deleted or geo-blocked 362. Now, what you also can see from these issues is that there are differences between the social media platforms, and one aspect that has been commented here in Germany is that, for example, Facebook has made it more difficult for users to find that form online so that they can actually report the content that they think is illegal. And that's why Facebook, for example, has way fewer complaints than other social media platforms. Another aspect is that that has been described here is that social media platforms first look if the content is, for example, violating their community standards, in which case they do delete it. But if it's only violating this German law, then what they do is they geo-block it for Germany, but leave it for people in other countries of the world. So obviously this has created a lot of debate here in Germany as to the effectiveness of this NetzDG law, as it is called.
And blocking things and taking people out, a lot of people have complained, have raised concerns, especially human rights organizations, about censorship and all that. There's also the political parties, opposition political parties, who are also raising concerns about this law and the way it can encourage censorship that might not necessarily be so needed in society. What exactly are they saying?
That's correct. This is a very big debate here in Germany. The effectiveness of this law depends on who you ask. If you ask those who defend the law, they say that it is exactly working as it is supposed to be, that users are actually reporting content and these platforms are actually deleting this content. Probably not every single complaint, but at least a number of those complaints. If you ask those who are against it, they would say, for example, that on the one hand, it can lead social media platforms to do over-blocking, to block too much simply because they don't want to be fined. They can also say that it can lead to censorship, for example, that it can limit people's free speech, and that's something that's of particular concern here in Germany. And there has been concern from different political organizations, political parties as well, that are saying that this law is actually more harmful than beneficial, and that there should be changes to the law so that it actually works as it should work. But again, the effectiveness of it depends on who you ask. There are still many people who believe that it is working, whereas others are completely against it.
So those who are against it, what's their argument, and what options are they presenting as the other way around it?
Well, they say that there should be changes to the law. For example, there are others who say that the private companies like Twitter or Facebook or YouTube shouldn't be ultimately the companies or the ones deciding what is allowed or what is not allowed online. That should be something that is in the hands of judges or courts, not in the hands of private companies. So that is one of the main arguments for those who are against this Nets DG law.
Okay.
Obviously, they say that there could be improvements to the law, and that is something that those who are in favor of have said, yes, there may be improvements to the law, but it first has to be seen whether the law actually works and what effects it has on the social media platforms. So it's for now it's only this very big debate about hate speech, about the limits to freedom of expression, about all sorts of different aspects that are vital for the development of our democracy and vital for the development of a society as well. What exactly can you limit and what you can't limit? And one of the arguments that the former Justice Minister Heiko Maas, who's one of the proponents of this law, in fact he's probably the biggest proponent of this law, and who is now Germany's foreign minister, he said back then that basically online things shouldn't happen online that are not allowed, for example, on the streets, that things that are banned on the streets should also be banned online. And that's one of the reasons why this law came into effect, and that's obviously one of the reasons why this law is so hotly debated, not only among politicians but also among the general public. Well,
hopefully other countries who are yet to adopt any of these laws will get some clues from here and will learn from this president. But finally, Thomas, are there any responses so far from the government as well as from the general public to this law and how its implementation is panning out?
Well, Gifty, that's interesting what you mentioned, because yes, there are some people who say, look, this is an example of clear guidelines of what should be allowed online. This is something that other countries could maybe replicate, but there are others who are saying, as I mentioned just a few seconds ago, that this is actually a flawed law, and that it's a flawed law that has to be somehow resolved, so it shouldn't be taken into consideration by other countries wishing to fight hate speech or fake news. So that's one element. And obviously, yes, it has been a law that's debated by the German public, because this is something that not only affects us journalists or that affects the governments, or it also affects users in particular, users that are, for example, on YouTube or on Google or on Facebook or on Twitter, and who ultimately have to deal with these kinds of fake news stories or hate speech comments or so on and so forth, and who also ultimately have to try and understand what's at stake there. So this is obviously a debate that is not only a debate in the political sphere in Germany, it is also a debate that is very much present in social circles here in Germany, and one that is evident in many parts of the country in many different spheres. So that is why this debate ultimately, Gifty, is so important and so relevant, not only here in Germany but also internationally.
Certainly it is. Thomas, thank you so much for that update and analysis all the way from Berlin. Thomas Sparrow is political correspondent with our partners DW, like I said, in Germany, bringing us up to speed on what's happening as far as social media regulation is concerned. Other countries have decided to, pass these laws. What will other countries who have not yet done anything do? We'll live to see how that goes. This is still The Pulse with me, Gifty and Dopia.